I feel guilty. For a while now, game developers have been sending me their video games for free. I know, some men drown, others die of thirst, and somewhere in between them is a moderately well-hydrated YouTuber complaining about complete non-issues. Hi, nice to meet you. But the problem with people sending me games is that almost every single time there is the hope or expectation that a video or stream will be made about them. The problem there being me, because I upload once every 4.5 years and the games I talk about tend to be several years old. So the chances of one of these freely received, relatively new games being showcased is low. So I figured that instead of making any dedicated video about these, I can just shove a load of them into one video and hopefully feel a little less guilty, and perhaps show off some cool stuff in the process. So let's do that. But before I get into it, I'll preemptively answer some nitpicky comments. Firstly, yes, I'm aware that a lot of the emails that these games are sent in are fully automated and sent out to anyone whose channel metadata fits the bill. In the case of these games, I will be one of the many channels that get sent stuff because I get X number of views in the horror game field. So not all of them are people literally asking me specifically. But some absolutely are, I promise, and some of those emails that I get are very sweet. Secondly, none of the games I'm going to talk about required me to sign anything, or say anything, or even promote them in any way, so everything I'm going to say is genuinely my own opinion. None of these developers know this video is being made. Thirdly, and finally, yes, people actually contact me. I don't know why either. God knows why you're even watching this, but you know, life has given me lemons. What am I gonna do? Send them back? The first game I'm gonna talk about is Mini Reaper, and before you get too excited, no, Mr. Bean has not gone goth. This is a short horror platformer in which you control a little horned creature that's filling in for the Grim Reaper while he takes a holiday. The goal is to collect 13 souls within this spooky old mansion and preferably not die in the process, which is what I can only assume that Matthew Lillard movie is about. But it's not quite that simple, because not only is the game styled like an N64 or PS1 era platformer, it actually commits to the idea within a modern setting, because we are actually taking the role of someone who played this Mini Reaper game many years ago and are now deciding to emulate it on a modern PC. The game's menu is even a little faux emulator interface. How cute is that? Unfortunately, most of it is for show and doesn't do much beyond letting us start the game, but even then, it's a nice touch. Naturally, we sourced this copy of Mini Reaper through creepy memes. Perhaps that deepened web, or the perverse criminal haven known as Reddit. This will be relevant information in one paragraph's time. It plays like a Mario 64 type platformer / collectathon type dealie with some fun movement tech and the ability to concuss yourself against ancient paintings. And even at a cursory glance, the visuals, audio, and general vibe are wonderful. They really commit to the concept, which I enjoy. The music in particular hits that perfect, playfully spooky tone. But the twist is, and this will be absolutely no surprise to you if you've ever read or listened to any video game creepypasta in your life, the game is creepy haunted, oh no, oh dear, ghosts in my compiled shaders, eek. The haunting in this game manifests as a Nextbot-style floating skull pursuer beast guy. It doesn't appear immediately. You can collect the first 3 souls before he spawns, and then the next couple before he becomes fully hostile. Then you're in for, what is, to me, a personal hell of sorts. Something about me is that I really don't care for platformers, especially 3D platformers. The ones I do love and grew up in were always platformers and something else. You know, like the Ratchet & Clank games, Jak 2 and 3, the Sly Cooper trilogy, and so on. Stuff like Mario 64 never clicked with me. The collectathon stuff never worked for me either. I'm too neurotic, obsessive. It just bugged me seeing incomplete numbers. So that's going on here. And then there's the Nextbot aspect. And let me tell you, you may expect someone who makes videos about horror games to be numb to horror. I am not. Anything chasing or otherwise pursuing me in a threatening way is pure adrenaline-milking nightmare fuel. And Nextbots are the distilled version of that. You tell me this PNG or GIF is patrolling and will sprint at me with increasing robotic momentum if it spots me? Horrific. So yeah, this game is a personal hell for me. However, I actually really liked it when I wasn't Panicking, that is. Listen to the horrid sound that plays when you're getting chased. Nothing quite tops Amnesia the Dark Descent's terror meter in terms of pure aural dread, but the harsh static and distorted electrical tones certainly have a similar effect. The behavior of the Skullman is quite interesting. It seems he only starts to properly chase you if you look at him. Until then, he will patrol and then sort of politely follow you around until you see him. He also seems to ease up on you a little bit once you've died once, but that may just be me getting better at the game or getting lucky. He just seemed to spare me a little bit more on my second attempt. But what startled me the most while playing this game was not the Skullman, it was this. Sometimes this floating ghoul can just warp through walls and get you, and sometimes it can really bully you, like when I got caught behind this bed. You guys seen that Hideo Kojima's trying to scan a ghost into his upcoming horror game? Do you reckon he has this in mind? As you may expect from a creepypasta type game, it has secrets, like this strange Twin Peaks room I found with untextured clones of our player character. I mean, that's the only secret I found, but I'm sure there are others as well. There's allegedly a whole second ending I haven't found yet, so get hunting. I got the regular ending in around 10 minutes on my second attempt. See if you can do better, and see if you can find the secret ending, because otherwise, the regular ending looks like this. If you do find any more secrets, let me know in the comments. I may read them if I ever get over my immense fear of all of you. Anyway, yeah, the game is short and doesn't overstay its welcome. I think it nails the vibe it's going for and provides a genuinely tense atmosphere. It's a worthy addition to the canon of creepypasta games and a bespoke nightmare for me, myself. This is a game that I, in absolutely no way, should have enjoyed, for several reasons. But I was charmed. Utterly charmed. It has soul out the wazoo. And once I figure out what a wazoo is, I'll show you guys a diagram. But thank you for sending it to me. It was a joy to behold. But for now, we move on. 3 Nights of Terror. Like the 100 Years' War, but a little shorter. This is a game where we play as a troubled police officer who's having some issues with his sleep, on account of some dreaded Mayor of the Night, it would seem. And each of the 3 titular Nights of Terror take us through different horror scenarios that this poor fellow is reliving. So, no, despite what the format of the name may suggest, there will be no funny animatronic creatures trying to get us to join their gang. Now, there's one way to guarantee a reaction from any online horror fan of my generation, and that is to play royalty-free background tracks from the musician Mew in your game's intro cutscene. It occurs to me that many of you will be too young to have properly encountered Mew, or Mewji as he used to be known, and that's a great shame. Not only is he one of the most foundational elements of early 2010s creepypasta and online horror culture, but he's also one of the only ones to not be caught up in some horrendous career-ending scandal. Believe me, there were a lot of creepypasta and horror creators from that time trying to get us to join their gangs as well, though less Freddy Fazbear and more Gary Glitter. I guarantee you've heard Mew's music before. His older stuff has been incredibly widely used for years, including in some more recent memes, but his newer stuff is also excellent and is still used by many horror creators. He's a real legend of the field, truly, and seeing any of his work used in a game setting will always get a pop out of me, to the point where it almost distracted me from the harrowing therapy scene it appears in here. Night 1 of our 3 Nights of Terror has us exploring some old tunnels, which would be fine if our police dispatcher didn't nonchalantly mention the phrase unidentified entity when describing our task. That's a little dread-inducing, because, you know, what the fuck are you talking about? Each of these 3 nights has a different central gimmick, which is interesting. The first of which is sound. When you walk, run, or interact with key items, you generate lots of noise, and sometimes the game just causes a load of sound by itself because it hates you. When too much noise occurs, the ghoul appears. And that's a problem, as most of us are, in some way, allergic. You can track your sound levels using this little map, which has a helpful doodad atop it that lets you know when you're causing a ruckus. And the entire thing takes place in a little maze that requires us to fix fuse boxes. A setting and scenario that many horror games have prepared me for, yet I've rarely actually had to do. Now, when I first played this in a little test run, I managed to go through this entire first section without seeing the ghoul once, mostly because I played slowly and crawled around for the most part. So this time, I got cocky, and let me tell you, that led to one of the most intense scares I've ever had, and you can see it happen here. I'm walking around having only activated one of the objectives, and I happily ignore any other sounds, imagining them to be environmental red herrings. They weren't, because I turn around, and there he is. Fuck, that really got me at the time. Now I know how Icarus felt upon seeing the first beat of melting wax. And what's really weird is, OBS, my recording software, clearly got scared too, because the game wasn't lagging. The recording sure as hell started to though. I know I spoke about how much loud, chasey creatures scare me in the Mini Reaper section, but quiet, creeping villains also fuck me up. Basically any threat neutralizes me. I'm a coward, what can I say? So on my second attempt, I go slower again, and it's much more successful. But this game is tense. It's quite old school in the way that many of the post-Slender indie games of the 2010s were. They typically had some kind of collect or activate X of Y type objectives in similar claustrophobic environments. I seem to remember a game taking place in a sewer that this specifically reminded me of, plus some SCP games, I'm sure. Some people in the comments will know what I'm talking about. The second half of this level is less mazy, which is nice, but much more stressful as the objectives you have to interact with all make a shit ton of noise, and the area is much smaller, meaning that when the ghoul spawns, which he almost certainly will, you'll end up lapping the place multiple times trying to avoid him. The second night follows a similar format, but with a new gimmick. So, do you guys remember the opening section of Cry of Fear? The one where you're walking through some kind of void with a camera, and the flash of the camera is your only light source? Yeah, it's that. I know a lot of you will have been born after Cry of Fear's release, so this might seem like a dated reference, but it's the best I have. But this particular instance of camera flash gimmickry is on a modern game engine, I believe Unreal Engine 5. So thankfully, light is less of a particle or a wave, and is more of a sort of liquid slurry that sticks around for quite some time, so you're not as blind as you'd expect. And the goal of this level is to set a load of analog clocks to a certain time within this dark hospital setting. This level's about as stressful as you'd think. It's like playing any Slender clone game, but in pitch blackness with a temporary light source, and that light source is what causes the monster to attack you. It's a real exercise in patience and orienteering skills, truth be told. Unfortunately, there's not much to show you here, given that the screen is almost entirely black almost all of the time. But, you know, just imagine there's a guy running around. Because there is. The monster here is actually quite chill, as long as he doesn't get flashed. With the camera, that is. In fact, I believe we directly ran into each other a few times, and he just kind of pushed me out of the way. The only time he got mad at me is when I accidentally caught him watching his favorite show, my bedroom. Now the third level is the longest one and is a bit more action-focused. As in, you get a gun. I kind of anticipated this to be the least scary, on account of the gun, but I was wrong. This is maybe the most tense one. Something I praise horror games for often is having restraint, having the opportunity to scare us, and electing not to. While a scare is scary, it's also a relief in the sense that it releases tension. If you choose to restrain yourself as a horror dev, you double that tension and give it to the next scare. And I love that kind of thing. It's well done here. For the first, third of this level, it's just 100% tension. And it's truly quite uncomfortable. It also proves to me that I could never be a policeman officer. This shit is horrific. Check out what the aiming looks like. Unfortunately, again, due to this being what I believe to be an Unreal Engine 5 game and me not having some kind of theoretical ultra computer, it didn't record super well, so I can't show you too much from this level. But it, like the other two levels, was incredibly tense basically from start to finish, so well done. All around, a very decently crafted set of tech demos. I had a really good time. There are also some extra levels thrown in once you've beat these main three, and they're there. Cool game all around. And you know, I'll always rate something well if it includes Mew music. Thanks for sending it to me. I am smiling in your general direction. This is one of those games that would fall into the evil job simulator category. You've probably seen a fair few of these from the likes of Chilla's Art and various puppet combo likes in the past. It's a genre I haven't touched on much because the games tend to be more or less what you see. They're much more fitted to Let's Plays and streams than my typical format, but it's a huge genre. You know, indie horror games used to be all about walking simulators with occasional jump scares, and now they're like coffee shop simulators, still with occasional jump scares, and they're typically set in either East Asia or the American Midwest, with a load-bearing pixel filter. However, this one is different. because I'm playing it, and it's about a haunted house attraction thing, and that tickles me. And to stay in line with the intended audience for these games, I decided to record myself playing it live. And looking back on that, I'm reminded why I typically script my content, but nonetheless, here are some clips from that. Beware, jump scares and loud noises abound. Also, I forgot to record my microphone and the game audio separately, so the mixing's fucked, but let's ignore that. My name is Jeremy Miller. I came across a job posting online, maintenance technician at one of the company's branches. They call it the Haunted Mine Ride, oh no. I'd just been laid off, my savings were nearly gone. Still, I felt relieved. At least I could finally start making money again. Will do my best. Haunted Mine Ride, oh god, oh dear. Get me out of here. Okay, we clearly ordered entirely too many mummy cutouts. I also like these guys. I can't quite tell if they're screaming at me or if they're like really happy to see me. Either way. Not so much scary as it is honestly quite welcoming. Hello. Dude, you gotta fucking warn me next time. Holy shit. Oh, hell yeah. I was gonna say, oh hell yeah, but he does appear to have a glowing red eye. Is that what microchipping does? I don't fully understand what microchipping is for. This thing bothers me, why is that there? Wear safety gear, ride the minecart. Hiss equals something is wrong. Stop! Locate and fix issues. This is the lowest quality book I've ever picked up, by the way. I like this one. This one's my favorite. I get a lot of emails, mostly trying to get me to promote shit, but I get no emails asking me to do voice lines for creepy monsters. I mean, check this out. You want this. Oh, this is a real guy. That's a real guy. That's a cutout. That's a real man. Let's check all the scary props. Yeah, it's this guy. I can tell you that already. He's fucking looking at me. If I press this button, are you gonna do something weird?
You're going to die. You're going to die.
You see, what I'm doing here is I'm making him turn his head so many times he gets a repetitive strain injury, and then he's fucked. If you want some more clips from that, there's a full video on my highlights channel, linked in the description. I will say the World Cup final was playing at the same time, so I did get distracted by that at one point, but otherwise my full experience is more or less there. And that's that. It's a fun little time, a little slow on occasion when you have to backtrack or whatever, but it's fun nonetheless. It also takes some very unexpected turns narratively, which is ironic for a game literally set on rails. But yeah, I had a good time. Thanks for sending it over. The email this game was sent to me in mentions my quote-unquote horror playthroughs, which is lovely because I didn't know I did those. This is a game in which we take the role of a sad man. Not your typical horror game sadness, though. Rather than some horrific trauma, he's sad due to the often experienced, though quite rarely explored, lost potential of his life. You see, he wants to be a painter, but he can't be a painter because that doesn't pay the bills. Thankfully, instead of getting into politics, he became a depressed and unfulfilled office worker instead. And yeah, his job absolutely sucks. Look at this place. At his desk, he has this very specific computer model, which I believe I recognize from The Mimic, which is a Roblox game. I vividly recall seeing a PC screen there which also had the Tor browser installed on it, and that was as suspicious then as it is now. That's got nothing to do with what I think of this game or anything else, I just like recognizing stock assets. There's an evil boss character that torments our poor protagonist, and he's fucking Scottish, by the way.
Don't you dare give me excuses. If your computer's useless, then you get up and do something.
And he's got an American flag in his office, and his name's Raphael. I like seeing a scary Scottish villain. We're rarely made to be the baddies, but we do make very good ones. I feel like our voices and general demeanor lend themselves to misanthropy. Anyway, the evil Scottish man sets us on some mundane and demeaning office tasks, but alas, the frights appear instead. One thing this game loves doing is throwing a little guy on screen every so often, and then having them disappear just a second after you notice them. I don't know if the timing on them is simply expert, or if I, in particular, am very predictable, but it worked on me almost every single time, at least for the first half of the game. Check this one out. I acted exactly how they wanted me to for that. If any game trailers need a reliable patsy, I'm your guy. As for the gameplay, it's much like many other indie horror games. Get a task on one side of a building, run to the other side, our character speaks about how he doesn't like doing it, and then a scary man appears every so often. After a load of spooky dream images begin to appear, we decide to say, "Frick you, villain," to our boss, and we decide to run away to find something better to do with our time in a range of quite different and admittedly strange environments as we hunt down a mysterious green light that has been haunting us. The street area we spent some time in is fascinating because I think it's an entirely new setting. It looks like East Asian back streets or alleys. Some parts are on fire and nobody seems to mind. There's a poster advertising space travel. We're an Englishman with an America-obsessed Scottish boss called Raphael, and there's a cat. Truly, a modern city. Welcome to Neo Plymouth. At one point later on, we enter a creepy little house with a mannequin and some kind of horrid stair nail trap. And I noticed not one, but 2 pentagrams on the walls. Good heavens. When I was younger, through cultural osmosis, I sort of figured that there were 2 things guaranteed to happen in life. One was that you'd enter some scary witch house and see pentagrams on the walls, and the other is that scary people will try and give you free drugs. Now, I know and am friends with several artsy alternative people, so it turns out I was 100% correct on both counts. Sometimes, in horror games, characters don't act accordingly when something frightens them. For the most part, this game is the same. Our character doesn't react to jump scares himself, because, you know, we're meant to do that for him. That's not a problem, but he does react to one event, and it's very funny.
Holy shit!
I mean, yeah, man. Fair response. Generally, the key hunts and item puzzles we have to do are more or less fine. They're standard fare for the most part, but it does run into some of the same pitfalls that many puzzle games do. Like when I need to find a lighter to light some candles, but I already have a giant burning torch in my pocket, and that simply won't do, apparently. But all around, this is a perfectly serviceable game, especially considering it was made by one developer. That's always admirable, and the game achieves what it sets out to. Well done. The only real criticism I have about it is that the writing can be very on the nose. You can tell almost immediately what the game is about from the intro, and you can probably guess where it's going to go. That's not a problem in itself, but it can become one when the characters basically outright state their intentions and thoughts, basically all the time. Subtlety is a great thing in narrative, not just because it's a showcase of the writer's ability to do a lot with very little, but subtlety also includes the audience as part of the narrative structure. Having us be able to naturally piece things together or interpret events is an activity in itself, and having media that shows trust in us to be able to do that is a real pleasure. Whereas here, and in many horror games, to be fair, they don't trust us to do that. So we get stopped every so often to have a quick summary fired at us, and that can be a little disheartening as both a display of effective condescension and also a break in pacing. But that's a point towards the larger genre and contemporary media at large, not just this game. I had a fun time with the green light. Do you guys get it? It's called the green light because the character needs to give himself the green light in order to follow his dreams. That's the one metaphor that isn't outright explained. Thank you for sending me this game. I hope your own green light continues to burn brightly, my friend. I look forward to seeing what you make next. Unlike the other games in this video, I had actually bought and played this game before I realized it had already been sent to me for free. So this video better earn me at least £2.49 so I break even. The art style here, as striking as it is, may feel familiar to many of you. And that's because it's a game made by the developer of Buckshot Roulette, Mike Klubnica. And let me tell you, having a shotgun in this game would have made matters much simpler, because fuck me, this game is dark. In dystopian sci-fi, it seems that all roads lead to the infinite torture nexus. Fittingly, you just can't escape it. People used to mock the show Black Mirror by saying that every episode was, "What if your phone was evil?" But in reality, a far more fitting mockery would be to say that every episode was a test to see how many different ways someone can fall into the infinite torture nexus or something adjacent. And that's what S.p.l.i.t is about too. The game has you cracking into some creepy prison technology where you can read about fun things like people being trapped in simulations of various Sisyphean tasks for the purposes of interrogation and torture. Pause and read here if you want some examples. My personal favorite of these is the task where a prisoner has to peel 100,000 potatoes with a rusty blade in order to escape, but only 99,999 potatoes are ever given. How grim. Peeling potatoes is for cowards anyway. Why are you discarding such nutrient-dense flesh, you fool? Anyway, the rub is that we eventually get caught in our hacking, and in order to prevent ourselves being put into the infinite torture nexus, we have to, ensure our own clogs get popped beforehand. However, an issue arises with the method we choose: hanging. Because with hanging, the brain is still salvageable even if the body dies. So instead, we attempt to find increasingly brutal ways to annihilate our brain, which is fucking horrid. But yeah, the game is mostly command line stuff. You don't need to know about computers to play this game, but it will help you ease into it much faster. And it's not a long game. I did a full year of cybersecurity at university, and it felt shockingly like every single moment in this game. No wonder I quit that and then kicked off this YouTube channel with a game about evil computers. The ending cutscene for what I believe is the good ending is brutal. I'm yet to get the bad ending, I can only imagine what that's like. And of course, this is an indie game. Gianni Matrograno is in it. Never mind the torture nexus. All roads lead to Gianni. Thank you for sending it over. I had a very troubling time with it. Hell of Fear. Mind Breach. Here, what a name, by the way. Rarely does such an evocative set of words mean so little. I was considering not including this game at all for a reason that will become apparent soon. In short, it betrayed me, and as such, I will not be recommending this or speaking too highly of it. And I feel bad about that. The developers sent it to me for free, and I feel like a dick for being negative about it. However, the issues it does have bring up a very important topic about modern game development, and as such I will gladly make an example of it. But first, let's talk about the stuff that's kind of cool. This is a game where we go, alone, to inspect a science station on some distant planet that has recently gone to complete shit. And here we are. But before we begin, the game does something quite interesting. It lets you add modifiers to itself, like starting out with a money deficit, having a hardcore permadeath option, disallowing enemies from spawning in certain ways, and more. And that's indicative of the game as a whole, because it is, ring the bell, an immersive sim. I think. The definition is still non-Newtonian. Yes, this is a horror game inspired by the likes of System Shock 2, Deus Ex, et al., and for having a very small development team, it actually does shockingly well at implementing immersive simmery. There's item physics to play around with, loads of different mods and upgrades for your character, inventory Tetris, carry weight, and a whole bunch of different tools and weapons to use however you see fit. It's shockingly ambitious and largely seems to pull it off, which is quite rare. The main gameplay loop is you going through quite repetitive elevator shafts, stopping off at different floors to turn on generators and kill villains, collecting keycards and notes as you go. While the gameplay has some impressive depth, the level design is a bit less exciting. Almost every area feels the same, but, it can't all be sunshine and rainbows, neither of which actually appear in these shafts, but such is the folly of rhetoric. The enemies you'll encounter are plant people. No, not quite like Linda McCartney, though I can't rule it out. These are people overcome with some kind of mutant parasite plant, and boy are they cross about it. The enemies start out pretty easy, but after not too long at all, the game gets pretty hardcore, especially once the roof men arrive, as they so often do, spitting slime at you like malevolent Nickelodeon wraiths. So yeah, the game has a fair bit going on gameplay-wise, and it can be something of a challenge, which may intrigue you. However, at a certain point, I spotted an asset which gave me the distinct AI vibe, and I don't particularly enjoy or endorse that. So I started looking closer and noticed a handful of assets that were definitely AI generated, and that kind of ruined everything for me, especially because this AI usage was entirely undisclosed. It's one thing if you're gonna use AI, but it's another thing entirely if you won't admit it. Plus, you can get in quite a bit of trouble for that on certain storefronts like Steam, even more so if you're blatantly infringing on the copyright of, I don't know, a major movie franchise, for example. And the problem with not disclosing the use of AI and explaining what is or isn't actually made by humans is that now I will just assume that none of this was made by humans. A lot of it probably was, but I can't be sure anymore. You have lost that trust. I got this game for free and now I want a refund. Also, explicitly mentioning that you were inspired by System Shock 2 and Deus Ex and then using AI-generated content is impressively tone-deaf. So yes, this was a great disappointment. It would have been preferable to have blank walls than AI slop as decoration. Hell, I'm sure there are hundreds of thousands of stock or royalty-free assets you could have used as well. Look back at the game Mini Reaper. That's a game full of stock assets and it rocked. It looked good, it was made by humans, and it had a strong identity. The same with the Green-Light. Loads of stock assets there, many of which I've seen before. Hell, that's probably why several sections of the Green-Light felt a little eccentric. They were making do. I'd rather have that any day of the week. Plus, the Mew music in the intro to 3 Nights of Terror, royalty-free, made by humans, and a staple of online horror. That's part of the charm of small, independent creators. The collaborative aspect of development is one of the least talked about but most important strengths of the entire field. Yes, a lot of that is done for convenience sake, but intentional or otherwise, it's also culture. The use of AI tarnishes and cannibalizes that. To borrow a phrase from the popular tongue, you're getting outright mogged, Hell of Fear, Mind Breach. It is genuinely both a skill and a soul issue. Anyway, one other note I have about this game is not a criticism per se, but something to mention, and that's the main character. He's some kind of ultra soldier man called Major Axel Vex. You know how you can sometimes just tell that a character was named with the sole intention of coming across as a cool badass guy? Yeah, I'll be honest with you. The whole tactical, edgy military aesthetic does absolutely nothing for me. Especially in the horror genre. In fact, I find it a little hard to take seriously. It's one thing when it's like a Chris Redfield or Leon Kennedy type character. They've earned that. They put in the hours and there's a degree of tongue-in-cheek fun with those guys. But if you're gonna thrust this kind of man at me raw, I'm gonna phrase that differently. If you're gonna introduce me to that kind of character with no justification, character growth, or build-up, I will not take them seriously. I had a similar thing happen recently when I tried to play the game Daymare 1998, and the whole intro was basically telling me how cool the protagonists are in their fucking special Black Ops Hades unit. And I mean, come on. What do you want from me? I know some people are really into that kind of vibe, and power to you. I just find it very inherently funny. Sometimes I like to write down potential names for these kinds of characters, and here are some that all of you are more than welcome to use in any context. Lieutenant Simon Punishment, Captain Brood Ingman, Agent AJ Shadow McJudas, and my and my absolute favorite, Staff Sergeant Trist Wolfpack. Now this is how you disclose AI use. And honestly, of all the possible uses for AI, proofreading and translation are pretty inoffensive from a creative standpoint. It doesn't look or sound like AI was used for any of the actual game content, so I'm largely fine with this. Of all the hills to die on, there are many with much better views. Plus, this is the kind of thing developers aren't actually required to disclose, I believe. They just did this to be transparent. Once again, Hell of Fear, brutally mogged. I promise I won't say mogged again in this video. This is another one of those evil job simulator games with a load-bearing pixel filter, but this time it's in an even more unique setting, a medieval, vaguely European place. Or potentially modern-day Aberdeen. And here we take the role of an innkeeper whose wife and child have recently taken a trip to a nearby city for some medical aid, leaving us to tend to the establishment by ourselves. Well, alongside a cat called Theobald and a worm called Alfred. And in classic bumbling husband fashion, it takes one night of our wife being gone for us to fuck up absolutely everything, as the cult comes by and asks us to start sacrificing our patrons. Like with At Night Haunted Ride, I recorded this one live, so here are some clips from that. Now, I've briefly played this game before just to check that it worked. All I did was pet Theobald and then run outside of the inn, and I got killed by some ghoul. So, I'm not gonna do that again. Yeah, okay, let's die. Evening, my good sir. Could I please have a cup of ale and a trencher with stew? As soon as I figure out what those things are, absolutely. Oh, stew. Is this one of those, like, perpetual stews where they have... Oh, you don't mind, do you? Is this one of those stews where they have, like, they're going for, like, 1,000 years? He didn't want beer, he wanted ale. There you go, my fine man. Oh, that worked. Are you sure you want this? You saw me make it. What took you so long? Jesus Christ. Sir, this is the Middle Ages. You're going to hell for saying that. So who's the real winner? Oh, big punch of coins. That's right, it's me. Hang on. Can I throw knives? I can. Oh shit, am I gonna throw a knife at the next guy that walks in here? Oh, he looks feeble. Get the knives. Hi there, can I explain the menu concept to you? You've got very luscious lips for a man in a hood. Why did my lights turn off? Fucking nobody's coming. Oh! You have 3 guests sleeping upstairs, 1 in each room. I need 1 of them. Get out of my tavern. I know things, Robert. I know about your wife and the sickly child. How do you... You don't need to know the details, just make a choice and no one else gets hurt. Why would you do this? Are you wearing Flecktarn? You will extinguish the torch outside of the room of the sacrifice of your choosing. Fail us and fail your family. And can I have a trencher with ale, please? That's the luscious-lipped man. I'm sorry, son. I love that this is phrased like it's a game show. Do you wish to sacrifice the person behind this door? The Monty Hall problem, but it's religious sacrifices. When cleaning the rooms this morning, I found this bag with silver and a small note attached to it. Must be from these so-called cultists you mentioned. I'll go to my room now. I'll try to think of something. What could help us? Good night, Robert. Hefty pouch of... Pouch? Hefty pouch of coins. There's a small note attached to the pouch. Excellent work. Fucking yes. No, I don't need words of affirmations from the devil. Every pub I go into in real life, I feel like I'm doing something wrong. Like, no matter who's serving me, it always looks like it's the last thing they possibly want to do. Maybe I just have one of those faces, I don't know. But it genuinely feels like, oh, you want to come into our drinking establishment and order a drink? What are you, some kind of pervert? Hello, sir. You look like a Skarsgård. Shit, he wanted one thing, what was it? Beer and keys. Sorry, you really should not be driving. Holy shit. I feel like one day I'm gonna wake up in a pixel filter world. And then I'll be sorry. Hate to ask, but would your kind of generous soul be willing to give me anything to eat for supper? Of course. I have infinite food. Give me a wheel of cheese. How hungry are you? A wheel of cheese and a trencher with stew. Sure. Fuck me, a whole wheel of cheese. I mean, I've got to give it to you just for the gall of asking. I feel like the gall of asking was some kind of French soothsayer in Roman times. Give me a knife. Theobald, don't stand atop the well. How many times do I have to tell you? That's where villains fall. That was the scariest fucking thing I've ever seen in my entire life. What are you talking about? Nobody wants to kill the barman. Okay, you need to stop doing that. What did I just say? May God reward you, Goodman. And I beg you, pass along my regards to your friend in the back as well. Don't say that. Why would you ever say that to me? Thank you. I feel like I'm gonna have to kill the old woman. I feel like the old woman... Okay! I will choose someone else. Are the fucking prank patrol gonna be in there when I look again? Yeah, there they are. Alright. Hello, good to see you. I like your short guard. Excellent work, Robert. Obedience suits you. You are doing the right thing for everyone involved. Keep to this path and you'll soon see them again. It's not really a comforting thing to hear from this.
Holy shit!
I really enjoyed The Last Lodge. I ended up playing it through 3 times in total across 2 days just to get different endings. And while it got a little repetitive doing that, I imagine that's not the intended way to approach the game. I just really wanted to see the different paths offered by this pretty cool setup that they offered. 2 of the endings are covered in a video on my highlights channel, so go and check that out if you're interested. Of all evil job simulator games, this one seems to have a lot more agency for the player, and I appreciate that immensely. Plus, again, the setting is unique, it looks great, and just overall it feels like a positive iteration on a genre that can, at times, feel quite samey. So thanks for sending it over. Very cool game. It also inspired me to finally get around to playing Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 as well, so that's been great. Thanks for that. Oh. Oh wow. Guys, I don't think I can cover Pathologic 3 in short form. Pathologic 1 and 2 are already a gargantuan task to try and talk about. They are dozens of hours long each. What do you want from me? This is the video game equivalent to panda diplomacy. I mean, thanks for sending it over. I'll try and talk about them eventually. Maybe. God damn. This game provided the only email I've received in quite some time that actually spooked me a little bit. Not because it's evil or rude, the email was very nice, but because, well, here's what it said. Hey Painticus, we saw you covered pools before, and with the Backrooms movie coming out this weekend, yeah, sorry, this was sent a little while ago, we thought you might want to check out Montreleuse's surreal psychological horror game Dreamcore, which just launched its final episode, Dead Mall, on May 21st. Now that's fine, except for the part where they mentioned me covering the game Pools. Not because I haven't, I certainly have, but in a video that has been unlisted forever with 50 views in total on a different channel. How the hell did they know about that? In any case, this game, much like Pools, is very much a walking simulator which takes you through a number of slightly uneasy locations. Those familiar with the pantheon of famous liminal spaces like the London Heathrow Holiday Inn, the mall from the Rolling Giant videos, the grassy meadows of Windows XP, the backrooms, and of course any number of water parks or children's play areas will find something to enjoy here. I know some people really aren't into walking simulators, and that's fine. They find fun elsewhere, like in leaving incredibly long and quite angry comments under videos that I'm sure someone will read, but I do enjoy this flavor of walking simulator myself. There are no threats involved, but if you allow yourself to engage with the atmosphere, the visuals, the sound design, there is still a deep sense of uneasiness that I appreciate. Weirdly, I find these environments, and the pace in which we're exploring them, quite meditative, in a way, even through that creeping disquiet. I recorded myself playing it, and here's what that was like. That was a lot of loud ambience. Oh, hello. We're that, cop that went down the Boston slide. This is what he experienced. When I was younger, I used to go to a very famous water park. Not famous because it was like really cool or whatever, but because it was turned into a Garry's Mod map. What would it be called? I'll put the name on screen. It was like something water park. Very popular in a lot of Garry's Mod custom games, like Trouble in Terrorist Town and that kind of thing. And that was a really weird experience because I didn't know... Why is this here? I didn't know that Garry's Mod map was based on Leith Waterworld, the park I used to go to. And then one day I was just like playing a game in there, I think it was Trouble in Terrorist Town, and I was like, holy shit, why do I know where everything is? I was about to say something incredibly stupid, which was... There's something frightening about an enormous pit. Yeah, there is. Maybe it's the enormous pit. I don't know what it was. Maybe this is just a thing in my memories. But I don't know, there's pictures to prove this too. But in the like 2000s, and I'm sure in the 90s as well, I wasn't around in the 90s for very long, so I can't remember it very well. But in the 2000s, a lot of like children's entertainment areas were incredibly poorly lit. They genuinely looked a little bit like this. And even as a child, I remember thinking like, this is a little creepy. Why are there these like gravestones around here? That's the single most unsettling piece of design they've done. Yeah, it's one thing to have like an uncannily large room with no windows. It's another thing altogether to put like a 11th century? I don't know my gravestone architecture. I'm sorry. I'm not a fucking architect. I don't know why, I just had a series of thoughts about Ringo Starr. Why is that? Don't you start. Don't like this room. Seeing these like individual plants laying around. Holy shit, I thought that was a guy hiding behind them. Do you see what I'm talking about? The like a head and shoulder? Oh my god, okay. Actually freaked myself the fuck out there. That was great. What I was gonna say is having these like individual plants laying around, it's like prime single male living space design. I don't like this room. This is the kind of room you go into in a gym and it's exclusively men in their mid-50s and they're completely naked. Do we reach an age where we just stop caring about hanging dong in public? Because, my god, the confidence of men in gyms. I will never have that. Oh, we're back here. Check this out. That barely improved matters. Is there gonna be a thing sprinting at me? I don't know what to believe anymore. I'm pretty sure there's no enemies in this game, but like... I don't know if there's jump scares. That's not... This room's horrible, by the way. Any room that looks like this is horrible. This is when the amnesia water monster is gonna start splashing around, trying to ruin my life. And he'll succeed. What's his name again? Is it the Kernk? Or is that the European shipping agency? That's an odd pair of things to have similar names. I don't ever want to know what's in this hole, but we're gonna see if I can crouch. Oh, I can! Oh, they gave up on the nice friendly arches and have gone to horrible brutalist squares. Or rectangles, if you must. Are you fucking kidding me? You know what? I'm gonna say something potentially controversial here. I think this would be less scary if there was a guy in here with me. Because then I wouldn't be like taking it all in. I'd just be like, get around the corner, hide, run, rush. Okay. You little rascals. You did actually startle me there. There was one place we used to go to all the time for kids' birthday parties. I never had one there. I think I only had like one birthday party growing up. It was great. I'll speak about that in a bit. But, there was this one place we used to go to all the time called Logie Gym. And it was kind of like I think it was some kind of like gymnastics school in some hollowed out old church. And the place had a real sinister vibe to it. Even as a kid, like, so it was split into two main rooms. There was kind of like a little lobby area and then this room full of like old gym equipment, and it had a big foam pit and trampolines and all that kind of stuff. That makes it sound big. It wasn't very big. I'll throw some pictures up on screen if I can find them. The like main room where all the gym stuff happened, that was pretty well lit because it was an old church. It had big windows and all that, so it wasn't it wasn't all that sinister. But the lobby room truly was. It really had like, hang on, I'll try and find a good example of a room that it looked like. But kind of all of this is what it felt like. A dark windowless room with like old carpet, just a load of like props laying around in the corners that had been pushed to the side, and a small CRT television that for some reason at like every kid's birthday party, when we'd break to have like lunch or whatever, everyone would go and sit on this very old, slightly damp carpet, slightly sticky carpet too, with some like cold party foods, sausage rolls and the like. And it feels like we always watched the movie Shrek. But then there was this other one we used to go to that was like, I couldn't even tell you where it is. I'll try and look it up for the sake of this and get some pictures. I imagine it's probably closed down as well now. But it was on like the outskirts of Edinburgh, if not quite some distance outside of it. And it was in this old like industrial area. And it was just a hollowed out warehouse that was converted into like climbing frames and like a, you know, like a kid's maze type deal. Is this like a classroom? I don't like that. And that place, honestly, the best way to imagine what that looked like is if you've played or seen the game Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach. It looked like a lot of the areas in that, but like dingier. And that was one, again, when it's full of kids and, you know, you're having a fun time with your friends, it's not so bad. But some of the birthday parties I went to, which like hired out that place, they didn't have enough kids to not make it creepy. So there were just like, I don't know, 10 kids playing in a space that could easily fit 40. And if you ventured too far away from everyone else, it would just get very disquieting very quickly.
Jeff the Killer! Jeffrey Killer! Go to sleep.
I wouldn't want to sleep in here, I'll be frank.
Go to sleep. Jeffree Star says go to sleep.
In an octa. Oh, we're here, yo! This was what it was like. This is what that warehouse was like. Of course, this is a bit exaggerated, but yeah, it was this kind of thing. What do you call this? I wouldn't call this a maze. Just like children's climbing frame things. And yeah, it genuinely lit like this. As dark as this, as slightly off-putting. Except the one in that warehouse had way more like pitfalls. Like you could just fall to the next level. There would be some level of padding sometimes. I was gonna say they should make adult versions of this. There's many reasons why they shouldn't. There's many reasons why they shouldn't. A number of years ago, I had a girlfriend of mine say, "Don't you think it would feel great to pull out your spine and just wring it like a damp towel?" I had no idea what she meant. Now I do. Now I get it. I think that would feel fucking incredible. So yeah, I really enjoyed my time with this game. Only one of the levels didn't really do it for me, and that would be the Liminal Hotel level. The main stretch of that level is a series of extremely disorientating mazes which you have to eventually backtrack through, and that really isn't up my alley. But the ending of that level is very cool. It gets very Twin Peaks, and then makes a pretty niche reference to online horror lore. Imagine if Nexialist were here. Nexialist, why do I know that name? Is that one of the worlds.com people? I remember that from like a Nexpo video years ago. Oh good, they closed behind me. And once again, sometimes instead of being scary, the game can be remindful and a bit nostalgic in quite a nice way. Potentially against the intention of the creators, as some moments I had in the Dead Mall level show. When I see a mall like this, I don't think of anything inherently scary. When I think about, and maybe this is me showing my age, but what I think of when I see a mall like this is the level from Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1. And that kind of removes a lot of the creepiness from it. Because I just think, like, holy shit, you could grind in so many places here. Which, out of context, let's not think too hard about that. This particular thought led me directly to the idea of doing covers of ska music in the style of The Caretaker, which I think is an absolutely golden idea. Superman by Goldfinger in the style of Everywhere at the End of Time. Unbelievable soundtrack to any potential skateboarding horror game. I've uploaded a few videos of my live gameplay on the other channel once again, so check those out if you like. But for now, we move on. Thanks for sending it over. I really want someone to make a liminal space skateboarding game now. So that's that for now. Apologies if you've sent me a game that wasn't covered here. I even received quite a few while making this video that will maybe be covered in the future. The unfortunate truth is that content creators get a lot of emails, and we only have so much time. The games I spoke about today are only the games that were sent in full, as in no demos, with their Steam keys included in plain text in the email, with no ongoing embargoes or other agreements, no key requests or correspondence required. Just, here's our game, do with it what you will, thanks. And that narrows the number of games down substantially, and even then I've not been able to cover all of those. Of all the games I did decide to look at for this video, thankfully none of them were bad, minus the AI one. There was another that I didn't include simply because it didn't work, which was a shame, but again, none were bad in terms of actual quality. That wasn't rigged for the sake of the video, I didn't cherry pick, it genuinely just worked out like that. How fun. But for one of the games I played, I spent around 30 minutes on it before deciding not to include it in this video. And that's because that particular game deserves a whole video in itself. And I can't wait to show it to you, so that will be for some time soon. For now, let me know if you like this video concept or if it's already a dead format. But before I finish, I thought it'd be fun to talk about the other kinds of emails I get quite a lot of. If you were around on YouTube in the 2010s, you might remember that there used to be things called MCNs, or multi-channel networks. Basically, management companies that would get independent creators to sign over a huge amount of their earnings in return for something, I'm sure. They were basically all scams, outside of some small homegrown ones that didn't try to scout people. But bad MCNs were so prevalent. Machinima was the most infamous, and somehow managed to go for years without people realizing that they were straight up siphoning money from actual creators, locking them into draconian contracts, and stealing their intellectual property. Well, good news. Those companies are still very much around, and you would be shocked to see how many people are still falling for it. I'm talking like big creators you have definitely heard of. These MCNs have largely rebranded now to appear as talent agencies rather than shameless middlemen, and they claim to be able to help us with things like sponsorships and... well, that's about it, which is insane because that means for a notable cut of your earnings, they'll send an email for you. Even then, some of the ultra-draconic machinima-likes are still around, especially in the VTuber space, and nobody seems to contest their existence despite the fact that they are utterly evil parasite companies. So yeah, I get a lot of emails from that kind of company, and a handful of other companies have straight up offered to buy this channel from me, which is insane. Then there are the scams. Fake copyright claims, fake sponsorship offers, all that kind of thing. Here's a few of those. Greetings! I just found out that my music appears on your platform without permission. Quick heads up that I own this content and I didn't approve its use. Would you mind reviewing it? I'm sure we can fix this fast. Hope to hear from you soon. Best regards, Artist. You may need to be a bit more specific there, both on what I used, where I used it, and who you are. Hey Painticus, I handle influencer relationships over at Red Bull. Dropping you a line because we've been looking closely at a select group of creators to possibly collaborate with heading into the next few months. Your page jumped out at us, particularly the way you showcase the lifestyle behind extreme sports, motorsport, and action culture. Nothing about it feels corporate or safe, and that authenticity is something we value highly. I know I talk a big game about extreme sports and action culture, but I don't think I'm your guy. I've made maybe like 3 references to Formula 1, though, so if you need me to be the Max Verstappen of the YouTube horror space, I'll do my damnedest. But I don't think you're really Red Bull, if I'm being quite frank. And to be honest, I'd probably be more of a Pierre Gasly or Alex Albon type, truth be told. Hey Explorer, we recognize the value of your approach and see clear potential. Let us consider what kind of joint project would be most productive. Yeah, okay. Quick question though. Who are you? And why are we mid-conversation? A lot of the quote-unquote business emails I get use this tactic where they act as if we already know each other and have an established dialogue, like we're already in the middle of negotiating. It's a shady way to make us feel smaller, like, oh, the real adults are here with their business talk, and little old me gets to sit at the table? Oh boy! No, you are a door-to-door salesman and I am yet to open the door. Stop speaking at it. Then there's a lot of emails from well-meaning editors and artists who want to get hired to do some work for me, and those are fine. I get it and I appreciate it. I especially appreciate it when they ask me things like, how much does your current editor charge? Unfortunately, he takes 100% of the earnings, and also does 100% of the other jobs here too. He's a real prick. But you can tell when a prospective collaborator is basically spamming every content creator they can, like with this one. Yo, your gameplay is sick, but your thumbnails are 2D and boring. I'm a 3D visual artist and have been scaling channels for years. I took a frame from your last video and turned it into a high-end 3D render. Attached. My gameplay is sick. Well, I've never been accused of that before. And that high-end 3D render he was talking about? It wasn't attached. And finally, every so often I get an email from a viewer, and I appreciate those. People often say very kind things, and that means the world to me, but I would ask you to not contact me there because it can get a bit hectic already. I read all of the comments under videos, so that's always a better place to reach out to me. Though, I have two specific viewer emails here that I want to showcase. Here's the first. Bro, what is your accent? Is it Welsh? Yes. And the second email was from a viewer called Franklin, who said, "Hello, I do not ask anything special except confirmation, if you can confirm it, that this account was your 100,000th subscriber. I was watching your Slendrina video halfway through, subscribed, and went to open a new tab to work on a school project when I accidentally hit Command R instead of Command T. I noticed that now, instead of 99.9 thousand subscribers, you had 100,000 subscribers. This has never happened to me before, and I would just like to know if I was the lucky one." Genuinely, Franklin? I think you were actually my 100,000th subscriber. In fact, this email was one of the first things I saw after hitting 100k, so I have no reason to believe otherwise. Cheers, pal. Now, before we're done, I want to ask something on the topic of YouTube and business. How would you guys, the viewers, at least that's who I think you are, how would you feel about me getting sponsorships? I'm still very much on the side of, I will not sell people things I do not actually endorse or use myself. And even then, with things I do use, like VPNs, so I can watch foreign streaming services or get around the UK's digital ID stuff, I still feel a certain reluctance about it, mostly because I appreciate that you guys can only take me at my word for that, and I just don't know how you guys would feel about it, so let me know. Listen, I do this for the love of the game, but it turns out the game has an annoying mechanic where I have to pay rent. But anyway, that's all. Thank you for watching. The end.